everyone, and welcome back to another deep dive. Really glad you could join us today because we are plunging into, well, a really legendary piece of gear and frankly a pretty strange one, too.
Yeah, legendary and maybe a bit strange. That sounds about right.
Exactly. Strange is a good word for it. They're basically unearthing a sonic time capsule today. So imagine this, a guitar pedal, right? But so audacious, so far ahead of its time in the 70s, almost feels like it was some kind of secret sonic weapon.
Secret weapon's a good way to put it.
Yeah, creating sounds that most guitarists back then probably couldn't even dream up, and now it's a proper collector's holy grail. So our mission today is to unpack the history, the kind of mind-bending features, and, the legacy of this psychedelic oddity, the Ibanez Flying Pan, the FP777.
Yeah, and what's so fascinating, I think, is the context of the mid-'70s.
Yeah.
It was just this crucible for effects experimentation.
Yeah.
Companies like Ibanez, under Hoshinogaki in Japan, of course they were just tweaking old ideas. They were really pushing boundaries, like properly pushing them, often jamming multiple effects into one box.
Right.
And the Flying Pan is just peak ambition. It really does raise a big question, doesn't it? How does a pedal that was, let's be honest, kind of a commercial blip, how does that become so influential and so sought after today when loads of other pedals from that time are just gone, forgotten?
That is exactly it. That's what makes it so compelling, right? So let's jump back. Mid-70s, Ibanez is really hitting its stride, expanding its effects line. They had this whole 700 series coming out.
Yeah, some interesting stuff in there.
Definitely. The Flying Pan, the FP777, came out of that series. I think there was another one called the Flying Fingers.
That's right, yeah. Quirky names back then.
Totally. But the Flying Pan, that was something else.
Yeah.
It really pushed Ibanez into uncharted waters. And the thing that still gets me about it, this was one of the very first stomp boxes, pedal-sized boxes, to really tackle stereospatial movement.
Yeah, that's the kicker.
Before this, you needed, what, huge rack units, stuff you only found in studios?
Pretty much. Big, expensive, often kind of unreliable rack gear. That was the only way to get that kind of stereo field movement.
And here comes Ibanez with this pedal, a stereo auto panner, but get this, it also had a phaser built in and tremolo.
All in one. Quite an engineering feat for, 76, 77?
Incredible.
And to really understand the impact, or maybe the lack of initial impact.
Yeah.
You gotta remember the guitarist's world then. It was overwhelmingly mono. Just plug into your amp, maybe one effect, that was it for most players.
Right. Stereo was kind of exotic.
Totally exotic. A luxury. Maybe for studio guys, but live. Very few people ran stereo rigs. Too complicated, too expensive.
So the idea of bringing this, truly spatial, moving stereo sound into a compact pedal.
It was incredibly forward-thinking, allowing the signal to literally, physically, seem to move across the stereo field in real time. It was a really bold move by Ibanez under Hoshinogaki, trying to democratize that studio-level effect.
Putting it at your feet.
Exactly. Trying to shift the whole way people thought about guitar sound, really.
Yeah.
With just one pedal. Talk about ambition.
Seriously. And it wasn't just the idea, was it? The actual circuit, the design inside was pretty clever too. Let's get into what made it tick.
Okay.
So core effect, stereo auto panning, that's the headliner. Sweeping your guitar sound back and forth, left to right outputs, creating this big kind of 3D movement.
Yeah, dramatic is the word. If you had the 2 amps, it was dramatic.
Right. But it didn't stop there, which is nuts. It also had this, you said, multi-stage phaser circuit for that swirly kind of psychedelic whoosh.
Yep, a pretty lush-sounding phaser, actually. Very much of its time. That sound was getting really popular.
And then it also had a tremolo function.
Right, using the same low-frequency oscillator, the LFO. That LFO could also modulate the amplitude, giving you that classic pulsing volume effect. Fiddling with your volume knob, but, perfectly rhythmic.
So panning, phasing, and tremolo, all potentially happening at once.
Yeah, intertwined. That's where the real magic, or maybe the madness, came in, how they work together. Because look, even in mono, just plugged into one amp, it was still a pretty rich phaser tremolo combo. Sounded good.
Okay, so it wasn't useless in mono.
Not at all, but in stereo. With 2 amps. Oh, man. That's when it just took off. It created this really dramatic, almost Leslie speaker effect,
Like the organ sound, that swirling sound.
Exactly, that swirling, rotating sound. But on guitar, it gave it this incredible movement and textural depth. It was more than just filtering. It was this unique blend of the panning movement, the phaser filtering, and the tremolo pulsing. That combo gave it a voice unlike anything else Ibanez or most others were making.
Set it apart.
Totally set it apart.
And did you have much control over all this happening?
Yeah, actually, you had a decent amount of control, which was good for the more adventurous players. You had a speed knob. That controlled the rate of the pan, the sweep. Slow and gentle or, super fast and choppy, almost like a helicopter. Then depth. That was the intensity, how wide the pan was or how deep the phasing effect sounded.
Right.
A dedicated phase knob, obviously, to control the phaser intensity,
Right.
how much swirl you wanted, and, crucially for the stereo thing, a balance knob to kind of fine-tune the mix between the left and right channels.
Yeah.
Gave you control over the spatial placement.
Nice. And proper stereo ins and outs.
Oh, yeah. Dedicated inputs and outputs. It was clearly designed with that dual-amp dream in mind.
Even if most people weren't quite there yet.
Exactly. A luxury few guitars really leaned into back then.
Okay, so groundbreaking features. Panning, phasing, tremolo, stereo capability, control. You'd think, okay, this has to be a smash hit, right?
You would think so.
A pedal, this revolutionary, sounds amazing. Should have been on every pedal board.
Well, here's the twist. It really wasn't a hit. It was kind of the opposite. Its production run was super short. Just a few years then, poof, discontinued.
No way. Really?
Yeah, quietly faded away.
So that leads to the big question then. Why? Why would something so innovative, capable of these incredible sounds, get dropped so quickly? And what does that short life mean for, finding one today?
It really does bring up that whole issue of market readiness, doesn't it? Was the world ready for the flying pan?
Apparently not.
Seems like it. There were a few things working against it. First, the price. It wasn't cheap. For the average player saving up, it was a significant chunk of change compared to, say, Simple Fuzz or Wah.
Okay, cost was a factor.
Then complexity. Its design, while cool, might have seemed intimidating compared to a one-knob booster,
Right, maybe too many options for some folks back then who just wanted plug and play.
Could be. There was a bit of a learning curve to get the most out of it. But probably the biggest hurdle was just the practical side of stereo rigs in the 70s.
Needing those 2 amps.
Exactly. You need the pedal plus 2 amps to hear its main party trick. And that meant more money, more stuff to carry, more complex setup.
Yeah, I can see that being a barrier.
And even if you had 2 amps, were the venues equipped? Were the sound guys ready for a stereo guitar feed? Often, no.
Good point.
So it was just profoundly ahead of its time. The market, the infrastructure, the general mindset just wasn't quite there yet.
Wow, ahead of its time.
Which leads to today. Ibanez has never, ever officially reissued the flying pan.
Never. Wow.
Nope. So original vintage units, extremely rare. And because they're rare, and people now understand their significance, they're highly sought after. Collectors, players looking for that sound.
So expensive, I'm guessing.
Oh yeah, depending on the condition, and you have to watch out for those stereo jacks, they could be delicate.
Oh.
You're looking at easily $1,500,
Yeah.
$2,000, sometimes even more for a really clean one.
Whoa. That's serious money for a pedal.
It is. And if you look at the big picture of vintage Ibanez pedals, its rarity, that unique feature set, it's right up there. It often fetches prices similar to an original TS-808 tube screamer.
Seriously. On par with the tube screamer.
Value-wise in the collector market.
Yeah.
Which tells you something, considering how iconic and widely used the TS-808 became.
That is saying something, but it makes you wonder, though, is its value more about that rarity and mystique, that kind of visionary failure aspect, compared to the tube screamer, which was just undeniably useful for so many players?
That's a really fair point. I think you're right. The tube screamer's value is tied to its massive utility and influence. Everyone used it. Everyone knows the sound, the flying pan. Its value is definitely more tied to its visionary nature, its boldness, and, yeah, its scarcity.
Right.
Because it wasn't mainstream, it didn't have those big rock star endorsements like the tube screamer did later on.
So it became more of a niche thing.
Exactly. A bit of a secret weapon for the people who did get it. You hear stories, maybe apocryphal, maybe not, about studio experimentalists in the late 70s, early 80s.
No. Okay.
People doing film scores, psych rock, avant-garde stuff. They apparently found it invaluable.
Because it could do things other pedals just couldn't, that stereo movement.
Precisely. Imagine being in a studio back then, wanting your guitar to just move across the speakers, create that depth. The flying pan let you do that from a pedal. It wasn't just an effect, it was like adding a spatial dimension. almost cinematic.
Cinematic, I like
Yeah.
that.
So while it wasn't tied to famous players in the same way, gear historians always point to it. They see it as proof of Ibanez's innovation before they hit gold with the Tube Screamer TS-808 and TS-9.
A sign of things to come, maybe.
In a way, yeah. It was basically predicting the kind of complex stereo spatial effects pedals we see now decades early.
Like the modern Strymons and Eventides.
Exactly. When you look at those incredibly powerful stereo multi-effects processors today,
Yeah.
the Flying Pan feels remarkably prescient.
Yeah.
It was thinking along those lines way back when. Yeah, it's genuinely remarkable how visionary it was. That core concept, auto panning, phasing, tremolo, all in one stereo box, it really did foreshadow a whole wave of modern pedals.
Can you trace a line?
I think so. You can definitely see echoes of its ideas in things like, say, the Boss SL20 slicer with its rhythmic chopping and panning.
Okay, yeah.
Or even the really complex high-end stuff, like a Strymon Mobius or an Eventide Mod Factor. Those pedals let you combine and route different modulations in incredibly intricate spatial ways. The Flying Pan was kind of like the quirky analog ancestor of all that. It laid some conceptual groundwork.
A psychedelic oddity that was also a pioneer.
Perfectly put. And not just in sound, even the name Flying Pan. Apparently it was a bit of a mistranslation or wordplay thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, sounding like flying fan in Japanese, which kind of fits that playful experimental vibe of Japanese pedal design in the 70s.
Oh, that's great.
So its journey, from being this commercial, well, maybe not failure, but certainly not a success,
Right.
to becoming this highly prized collector's item. It actually makes perfect sense. It's a grail because it represents Ibanez being incredibly bold and imaginative. It captures the spirit of that era when they were just throwing ideas at the wall and shattering norms in the sound design.
So wrapping this up then, what's the final takeaway? The Ibanez Flying Pan, FP777, it really stands out as one of the boldest, most out-there pedals Ibanez ever made.
Absolutely. One of the strangest, but also one of the most visionary.
A stereo auto panner, phaser, tremolo, all in one, truly ahead of its time, offering this kind of psychedelic stereo movement that just wasn't common then.
Decades ahead, really.
And even though it got discontinued pretty fast, the market just wasn't ready.
Yeah.
And it's never been reissued.
Still waiting. Or maybe not.
Maybe not. But its rarity and that visionary design have just cemented its status, haven't they? It's this mythical collector's piece now, a real testament to that wild experimental spirit of 70s effects.
Couldn't agree more. It really shows that innovation doesn't always equal immediate commercial success. Which actually raises an interesting question for you, the listener, to think about. If a piece of gear like the Flying Pan can be seen as a commercial failure in its day, but then become this priceless grail decades later purely because of its innovation, its unique perspective, well, it makes you wonder, what other overlooked technologies or ideas are around us today? Things may be considered too niche, too weird, too avant-garde right now. What among those might turn out to be tomorrow's legendary game changers?
That is a great thought to end on, something to definitely chew on. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the incredible, the weird, the wonderful Ibanez Flying Pan. We really hope you enjoyed digging into this piece of pedal history and its enduring legacy as much as we did. Until next time, keep listening, keep exploring, and keep diving deep.